passionate one. Oh, yeah, it's like lightning. Everybody...
Welcome to another edition of Real Talk with Robbie and Shane. And we might as well at this point go ahead and say Real Talk with Robbie, Shane, and Jamie, because you've only missed one. You missed the first one. So you weren't in the pilot. It's kind of like how in Star Trek they filmed the pilot. None of the cast members actually came back in the real series.
I was redshirted.
You were redshirted. You were Captain Pike. We'll pick some up other time. And
Don't you dare.
So today we're here to talk about Suicide Squad. We saw an early showing of it today. First showing in our area, 6:30 p.m. We were there. We were ready to go. This is the third movie now into the DC extended universe or expanded universe, whatever they're calling it. But the DC Cinematic Universe, DCCU, if we're going to talk parlance there. So we had Man of Steel, we had Batman Superman earlier this year. Now we have Suicide Squad. So for the third entry into it, how are you feeling about the world building so far, Rob?
I like it. Yeah.
Man, a few words.
Yeah. Well, only because never.
We have apparently learned over the last few episodes that and you'll see more because we have the San Diego stuff still come out. I have a bad habit apparently of jumping the punchline and making Robbie not be allowed to talk. So I'm going to do very, very good at that. So what do you think about it?
I liked it. It was, to me, it felt like the Guardians of the Galaxy version for DC, because you had your first, group of not main characters,
right?
But your secondary group of characters in an established universe coming together, and I just thought that was really cool. Like for them to flip it on the DC side, like, hey, let's not put our heroes together first. Let's go with the villains.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
World building, third movie. What we thinking?
The characters I thought were great. I kind of like the direction and that it's headed. I think there's a lot of potential going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's definitely a step towards what DC needs to be doing for the most part, in assembling these. And the Guardians of the Galaxy is that's kind of very apparent. A lot of these people barely share comic book time together unless it's in a Suicide Squad comic book time. So I thought it was a pretty interesting idea and kind of a conglomerate of some awesome characters. And yeah,
I agree. I think the thing I love most about this, as far as it being the world building, the third movie into the world, this is a world now that DC's kind of jumped in with the second and third movies now and said, no, these characters exist in a huge world. And this is a huge world with superpowers. You had Marvel that took, 5 or 6 movies before we really got to, hey, there's a bunch of other characters in there. And then it was still just the characters we've seen in the movies so far. With Marvel, you have, in Batman Superman, you bring in your big 3 with allusions to 3 more. Suicide Squad, you bring in a ton of other characters. A lot of them metahuman, superpowered. Allusions to other characters, stuff like that. So I think as far as our world building, as far as setting up, they're like, no, they're kind of kicking the door in a little bit. We're here to play. We know we're behind the ball. We know that we've taken a while to get our world set up.
I hate to always go back to comparing it to Marvel too, just because I hate to do that. But at the same time, you're following what's come before, so you're going to see similarities when you're like you said, building the world. So
as much as they try to make it their own thing, and like I said, we hate to do it because it's like I always want DC to stand in its own thing. Right. I want the DC movies to fail or succeed by their own volition, not whether they're Marvel or what did Marvel do that they didn't do.
You're going to see something based on the characters, not the brand name.
Exactly. Before we get too much into the actual, what do you think about comparisons between our emerging DC universe and this already established 12, 15 movie Marvel universe now?
Well, Marvel has the template, and a lot of people are going to be copying that. DC is definitely going to copy that because it's a successful formula.
Right.
And we've seen with Batman versus Superman that they have made some alterations, based on that. It's that being said, really the Marvel Cinematic Universe really just becomes a part of the extension from the comics.
Right.
I think in the comics, DC does a better job of pulling things together than Marvel typically does in the movies. Also, Marvel doesn't quite have all of its properties.
Yeah.
So the absence of mutants and things like that. I mean, it's not known, like, people that go to enjoy movies and stuff, they're going to be fine with it. But people that are pretty much well-versed in X-Men and, you know, teaming up with Iron Man, that's a big part missing for me. I don't necessarily have to worry about that in the DC universe. Right. I will say with Marvel's template, I can tell you who is likely going to be killed off and who is likely going to be living. Yeah. I can't really tell you that in the DC extended universe. So I think there's more to lose in the DC universe, like figuratively and actually literally, because, you know, if they don't pull this off, you're not just letting one movie fail, you're letting multiple movies fail.
A bad Marvel movie right now is not going to ruin the future of Marvel. They're going to kind of keep going. They're going to keep going. Some of the worry is that a bad DC movie might derail the future.
Oh man, it's going to be Green Lantern all over again.
There's a steelbook like right over there. Rob found it, and we're ashamed to tell you.
I'm not ashamed. Green Lantern is my favorite character.
We're ashamed for you.
Favorite character in the movie?
It's going to be cliche, but it's got to be Harley. I mean, you got Margot Robbie knocking it out of the park as a character. You have Paul Dini seal of approval, saying that she brought that character to life, big. Which you have his praise. I mean, whatever critics say, it doesn't matter. You have the man's opinion on that character. And every time she was in the scene, she stole the show. Yep. She was Harley Quinn. I mean, never in a doubt was I. You know, we go back to the animated movies a lot with our favorite voice actors. Right. You know, it's like, hey, you know, Harley is either Arlene Sorkin or Tara Strong. Now there's another Harley, and I'm perfectly okay with that. And she was awesome.
She did pretty good at times aping the Arlene Sorkin voice.
Yeah, it was like the mannerisms, like just the way she reacted to the other characters, especially like Katana. Yeah. I love that. Like, it's just, she's my favorite character in the movie.
Right. Favorite character in the movie?
I'd probably go with Harley too. Margot killed it, but I also found myself liking somebody I didn't think I was going to like. And Rob and I had this conversation like back when casting was announced, and I was like, oh God, it's going to be Will Smith again. And I don't hate Will Smith by no means. I do feel like he kind of hams it in just a little bit now. He's kind of got a. I know what I'm getting when I go to see a Will Smith movie. Right. I was actually kind of surprised that he did pretty well, and then Jai Courtney as Boomerang was phenomenal. Like, I thought that was great. Like, so the characters, I definitely think all the characters were good, with the exception of maybe a couple. But I think Harley definitely. They went with the right person, and I'd love to see the audition. I want to see like what made it, because she has the mannerisms and she has the look on her face, and the little subtle things that she does that I need to rewatch it. But the little subtle things she actually does is very much Harley. It's the animated series Harley come to life. People were griping about the outfit change. There's a nice nod to that, and it is there.
The Mad Love scene in the
But I feel it works. It definitely works. I'm kind of curious to see. I don't think that's going to be a permanent Harley Quinn outfit that we're going to be seeing. I feel like...
Well, even in the comics, they changed them every issue almost now. So quite a bit. In the Harley movie that's coming in a couple of years, she'll be in a completely different
outfit.
It'll
probably be closer to Arkham City.
Probably. Like the corset. Yeah. Yeah, that was... Like I said, even mentioned that scene, like seeing this outfit like in a cinematic world, and I'm a huge Alex Ross fan, so seeing that painting in real life, that was really cool.
That's like one of those normal things you would see in like Bat in the Sun, where they do that awesome, like, you know, they just try to bring as close to the comic book to life as you can, and then you see it on the big screen, you're just like, thank you.
No, absolutely. My favorite character, you touched on it a little bit, but honestly, my favorite character was Deadshot. I love Will Smith. Like, I unapologetically love Will Smith.
We're not friends.
To me, like, and the reason I love it is, like, it's been a while since I've seen a good Will Smith movie. Like, it's been a while since I've seen something that made me think Bad Boys. This made me think Bad Boys. He was a smart ass. He had some great one-liners. He was back to being typical Will Smith.
He's a phenomenal actor at his best. Like, hands down, he's a phenomenal actor at his best. And this was... I feel like there was some cuts that made him stand out a little bit more.
Right.
Like I think when we watched, if you watch the original Suicide Squad trailer, which I've seen a little bit on this, it does kind of feel like we got a different movie.
The through line of this movie is definitely kind of like Deadshot's, not redemption, but
kind of like his justification.
Kind
for
of,
what he's doing.
yeah.
There's definitely been some changes with what they've done with his
Which,
character.
I mean, that dude also, he's a charismatic actor. Which, I mean, you see him and you're like, oh, yeah, every one of us, we go back to the Fresh Prince days. We love that show. Mm-hmm. And just seeing him, like, you know, in this movie and not in his typical form of, he's playing well with other people.
Right.
It wasn't just a Will Smith movie. He's like, hey, I'm part of this group. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
The ensemble cast they picked the right actors.
Mm-hmm.
They really, and actresses, they really did pick the right people.
The only one I would argue, like, and I mean, it was just one of those things, but I felt that the entire movie, Joel Kinnaman was trying to play Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broken Tom Hardy.
It was. And I just kept hearing, like, especially in his voice, I was like, no, he's trying to give that line like Tom Hardy would. Mm. And it's very much clear that, like, no, Tom Hardy was supposed to be in this movie.
Nobody listens to the fake RoboCop. Nobody's going to listen to the fake RoboCop.
He was fake RoboCop, wasn't he?
RoboCop, which never happened.
All right. Another thing we talked about, especially in the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of through line, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Now, what'd you think about that?
It's like, was there a bad song in the movie?
I don't think so.
There's so many moments where we were just like, we love that song, or we love the way it matched up, and then especially the Eminem part. We just that's like one of our things anyway. So we're like, oh, this is happening.
Let's get down to business starts, and I'm just like,
it's
immediately
like you take everything that we love as far as seeing in a movie, and you take all the songs that we love, you throw it in a blender. Here's a movie for you guys. So we liked it.
It was. And it's funny because, like we said, we're going to tie this to Guardians a lot because that's one of the big things everybody loved about Guardians was the soundtrack. Yeah, you get Spirit in the Sky. The trailers were really building that because you get the trailers with Bohemian Rhapsody. I was sad because Ballroom Blitz was not in the movie that I caught.
Yeah, it was not in the movie at all.
So, but they made a point to where it's like even the music seemed like this was going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. The soundtrack I thought was great. At one point, I even looked over, like, no, you looked over at me like feel like I got to go to Walmart now and buy the soundtrack. Yeah. You said that you had a couple issues with the soundtrack, so
I did.
Let's go to the dissenter of the group and not just, hey, we loved it, it's awesome. Like,
so I do have some issues with the film. I actually enjoyed the film, but I do have it. And one of the first issues that kind of stands out to me is the frequency of the music.
Okay.
There was a lot of it, especially at the beginning. And I feel like the beginning, I don't believe the beginning of the film was actually filmed until after the movie was wrapped and shot. And
I can see that.
The introductions to the characters was a big thing that really annoyed me. Everybody got a song.
See, I see where you're coming from. I like that.
So I thought I would, like when the first character, and then, you know, when Harley was up, and then I realized it was kind of grating on me. Like, I don't know what it was. It was unfocused.
Gotcha.
And I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan. When Sympathy, can't talk today. Sympathy of the Devil hit. Mm-hmm. That's kind of when I just kind of had my fill of it. I'm like, why? Why? It feels like there were some parts that were actually ruined with some of the music. The dinner scene with Amanda Waller.
What were they playing then?
I can't quite think. It was just, there was too much of it. I think it was some orchestration over that too.
Okay.
There was just too much of it. And in the first trailer, that played so serious and so
because there's nothing going on.
It ruined the scene. It absolutely ruined the scene. Because that, to me, and that scene actually, it was not... When I first saw the trailer, it was not what I thought it was going to be because of that scene. It was kind of dark, serious. The music made it kind of feel hokey in some parts.
I could see that.
Especially going towards the end, towards the Enchantress and the music that they were playing. Mm. And then the actual mix of the movie. So I'm pretty sure some of the things that Enchantress was saying, I don't know if it was because of how they did the orchestration, but her words weren't matching up with what her mouth said. You know, they had that big effect.
That was an odd effect.
It contrasted with a lot of the music, and it was really, it kind of took me out of the experience quite a bit.
I can see that.
All right, so moving off of our music and soundtrack, the movie. Because we kind of been gushing over it a little bit. Let's start it a little bit backwards from where I would normally go. Least favorite part of the movie. And it could be scene, it could be aspect, it could be character. Like, just what in the movie, if you had to pick, was like, no, I did not like this.
Maybe the fact that it did jump around kind of quick in some parts.
Okay.
Like, it was just like, hey, like, especially at the beginning, like, Jamie was talking about the introduction of the characters. Like, I know you have to cut for time, but sometimes, like, with certain people, like, Stan Lee always says everybody's comic book is somebody's first comic book. Everybody's comic book movie could be somebody's first comic book. So if you didn't know who Harley was, or Captain Boomerang, or, Deadshot, you might not get that entirely.
Okay.
So, like, some of the times it jumps around just a little bit too quick. And it's like, maybe this is another one of those things, like, maybe DC will get another extended cut of this movie.
Yeah.
And we'll have another 3-hour-long movie of a DC movie to get some more backstory. But I don't know, maybe that's my only gripe. If you're not a big fan of comics, you might be lost with some of it. But I think movies like this are made for comic people. So, yeah, that's probably my only issue.
Okay, worst, least favorite part of the movie.
So I'll actually agree with like everything you said. Especially, I felt like some of the narration was chaotic, a little choppy. They moved on from scene to scene. I think the helicopter crash, which you can see in the trailer, the current trailer, there was no impact for that for me. Like, it just moved from scene to scene, like, kind of quick.
Yeah.
Harley's introduction, I felt, took a back seat to. I know they wanted to introduce all these characters and what they did, but I felt like the flashbacks really hurt the movie in some places. Like, I think a lot of people showed up to see Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Not Deadshot.
Yeah, Harley and the Joker were the major selling points of this movie.
And the flashbacks, I feel like they ruined what seemed to me fully fleshed out scenes.
Okay.
And they kind of condensed them down into like an origin story flashback. And that kind of ruined that a little bit. In my opinion, the first half of the movie should have focused on not introducing those characters, but it should have focused on Harley and the Joker. Also felt the Joker's role was nothing but a glorified cameo. The other issue I have is with the Joker, they always cut him short when he's about to do something great.
Right.
The editing in that movie was so choppy, and it was actually kind of a bad job. I really do feel like when they did the reshoots, there was some panic over Batman vs. Superman not having enough humor. I feel like they added a lot of stuff that subtracted from the things that we wanted to see as comic book movies. You mentioned that this is a comic book movie, and it very much is. But it is a movie. Did we already talk about the Killing Joke and the R rating in the Killing Joke? Yeah. So this is a movie that could have benefited from that R rating just a little bit as well.
Which, I mean, you said Jared Leto had so many scenes cut.
Yeah,
maybe we get
some, like,
again.
40
Maybe that's one of the things we go back to, and we get another cut of that movie.
There's no way we won't. David Ayer is a good director. I like his stuff. It felt like some of that was his movie,
right,
and some of it was not his movie. And the parts that were his movie, I really liked. The parts that were not his movie, I have some big issues with.
All right. Let's see. Least favorite part of the movie for me. I would say that maybe there were a few too many characters in it. And I only say that because you didn't get to really play with some of these characters. Killer Croc. They do such a good job of showing him on screen, and I never thought I'd see a movie with a Killer Croc involved in it. But I don't know why he's like that. I mean, I know, but the movie doesn't let us know.
He didn't really get a flashback. He didn't get anything.
Yeah, he doesn't get, like, he gets his one kind of scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm coming along, whether you like it or not." But he kind of doesn't get his glory moment. Like, we talk about Guardians. Guardians, everybody gets their moment. Not everybody kind of got their moment in Suicide Squad. Katana didn't.
Yeah. Crying and talking to her sword was probably the only focus they put
you
on
get
her.
This illusion. You're like, oh man, I kind of want to know about this character, but you don't get anything that's, oh my god, what's going on with her?
They handled her, it gets a lot of crap, but they handled her much, much better in Arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was a little overstuffed, which I didn't think Batman Superman was overstuffed, and that was a big complaint to Batman Superman. But I honestly do feel that Suicide Squad, we could have cut Katana, we could have cut Killer Croc, and had a little bit tighter movie. That's just my thing. Now, trying to wind down pretty quick, so real quick, lightning round. One quick thing that you really liked about it that we haven't said so far.
The cameo at the end that we won't go into.
All right, so a little stinger thing at the end. Yeah, it was a scene that both me and you were really hoping was going to be in. So really like that. Quick lightning round thing.
Mainly the Harley scene where it's raining and she's crying on top of the car. Won't go into the details of why that happens.
But
it was a very good, revealing scene for Harley. It was very out of the comic book, Harley Quinn.
All right. My favorite, or a real part that I like lightning round, Batman. Was in it a little bit more than I thought he would be. Some places that I didn't think he would be. So, big thing, the movie has been getting mixed reviews. We're a pretty anti-movie critic.
Yeah.
We're not a big fan of them. We hadn't really talked to you about it much. So, negative criticism. Do you think that this movie deserves negative criticism?
Keep in mind, a lot of that criticism is some of the reviews that I did try to look into. I felt like those are the same people that praise certain other films for doing the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man 3 is my least favorite Marvel movie. It holds like a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Keep in mind, this movie is not a 28% movie.
No, absolutely.
It's not. It's a good watch. Is it a solid 10? Absolutely not. I'd rank it pretty heavy. Probably 7 out of 10. There's I do have some issues with it, but the criticism that it's getting, I think, speaking of overstuffed, I think a lot of the stuff I've read is just, I saw it being compared to Batman and Robin, and I'm like, you don't know what bad is.
I saw something today. It was like somebody posted a review that they really liked, and somebody else's basic reply was, nope, LOL. So it was just like, really? Like, I've seen people be like, oh, well, they liked it. What movie did they watch? I was like, friggin' Suicide Squad. Like, it's a good movie. I thought it was a good movie. Criticism?
Yeah. I mean, if it's almost like us, we weren't too happy about Ghostbusters being remade, but we watched it and we bashed the movie going into it with the thing of keeping an open mind, and we changed our opinion for the most part of it. I think to this point, some critics are just to that point where they don't even watch the movie. They're like, "Oh, who's making it? Who's directing it? What studio did it? Oh, okay, I'm not even watching it. Let's just write up a bad review." I just feel like a lot of hate, especially for DC, is just unwarranted.
Overall, I like the movie.
Liked it.
Like I said, it's not a perfect movie. I'm not saying it should win Oscar for Best Movie.
Definitely not.
I'm not saying movie. To me, that was a fun movie. It's the thing that
DC
said
needed that right now.
What people, and that's one of the things that get me. Like, people have criticized Batman, Superman, and Man of Steel for not being fun. Mm-hmm. This was fun. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the thing. If you like the DC characters and you want a fun movie, it finally showed up.
I think it's worth an evening out.
Absolutely. So, Suicide Squad for Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, Harley, the Joker, and Batman. You've been
Robbie.
You've been Batman.
I've been Shane. You've been you. We'll see you next time.